Okay, good afternoon and welcome to our awards committee ceremony for this March 12th, 2014. I'm Eric Jones, Chief of Police for the Stockton Police Department, and I'm honored to be able to go over these awards today and give out some awards to Stockton's finest, as well as to some firefighters who have really aided our community in becoming a safer place, as well as some citizens who have stepped up to the plate to make our community a safer place. You know, a lot of our police officers do a lot of these activities every day, day in, day out. I couldn't be more proud to lead the Stockton Police Department and the very staff that put their lives on the line each and every day. These are just a few examples of some outstanding work that we're honoring today, but I think we should really honor all of our police staff, our fire staff, our emergency medical staff, and what they do on a daily basis for us, as well as a lot of the citizens of Stockton that step up on a daily basis again, to make this community a safer place. So thank you for joining us today as we come together to recognize a group of citizens and police personnel who have demonstrated extraordinary acts of heroism and bravery for the betterment of our community. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Stockton City Manager, Kurt Wilson, for joining us here today. City Manager Kurt Wilson, let's give him a hand, please, for being here. Thank you for being here to support what our personnel and citizens have done. As well as Fire Deputy Interim Deputy Chief Mari McCarn. Are you here? Or you are here? Yes. If you can give your hand and we can give you. Thank you. We also have, let's see, Fire Department Captain James Miller. There he is. And Battalion Chiefs Matt Neeram and Lane Healy. You're here. As well as representatives from Engine Company 9 for being here today, so thank you. Also, we have the police command staff here today. We've got Deputy Chief Trevor Womack, as well as, there he is, as well as Captains Scott Metters, Doug Anderson, and Aaron Rose. So, and Lieutenant Sajor, thank you for being here today to show support. So each year, the Stockton Police Department's Departmental Awards Committee reviews nominations concerning individuals that have displayed unselfish acts of courage and heroism. The Awards Committee selected the following individuals to receive awards for their outstanding efforts. So for the first recognition event, I'm going to name those who are getting the award, and as I name your name, if you could please come up over here to the stairs and then join me on the stage. And from Stockton Fire Department Engine 9, Fire Captain Javier Martinez, Engineer Andy Hall, and Firefighter Jeff Van Houten. They will be the recipients for our Department Recognition Award. And I do understand some of them were unable to make it, so Interim Deputy Chief, if you wouldn't mind receiving it on their behalf, perhaps. And sorry, the stairs are way over there. So then once the Interim Deputy Chief gets here, I'm going to read about why we are awarding Company 9. So on September 21st, 2012, a resident of Stockton was the victim of a carjacking in which the suspect forced the victim to drive him to a location under threat of violence. Members of the Stockton Fire Department Engine 9 B shift were dispatched to a report of a subject possibly injured in a vehicle in the street. At the time the fire department responded, they were unaware that the vehicle in question was stolen. When Stockton Fire Captain Javier Martinez, Engineer Andy Hall, and Firefighter Jeff Van Houten arrived, the subject jumped out of the vehicle and into another moving vehicle. The subject threatened to stab the driver and then forced the driver of the vehicle to drop him off a few blocks away from the original location. During the time the suspect was gone, members of Engine 9 located a loaded gun in the vehicle. The subject later returned to the vehicle and was subsequently subdued and held down by Stockton firefighters. The actions of Javier Martinez, Andy Hall, and Jeff Van Houten were above and beyond their normal duties. Their response in detaining this subject removed a violent individual from the streets and prevented anyone else from becoming a victim. We recognize them for their contributions in making Stockton a safer city. So congratulations to them. Thank you. The next recognition event is where I'm going to give the Meritorious Service Award to the following individuals. Lieutenant Lee Kissel, and as I name your name, if you could please come up over here to the stage. Sergeant Matt Garlick, Officer James Manor, Officer Jeff Pope, Officer Tom Heslin, Officer Mark Cuvion, Officer Ryan Terriall, Officer Kyle Lamont, Officer Kevin Nall, and Officer Richard Buckley. And then if we could have on hand and queued just below the stairs, those who will be receiving the Departmental Recognition Award for the very same incident, which are Stockton Fire Department Truck 2's Captain Brad Palmer, Engineer Greg Domingo, Firefighter James Riley, and Firefighter Ryan Hoskinson. So regarding this event, on Tuesday, December 11th of 2012, members of the Stockton Police Department's Community Response Team, known as CRT, and several members of the Stockton Fire Department became involved in a very high-risk incident. That evening, a carjacking occurred at American and First Streets. A 55-year-old male victim was stopped at the intersection when a vehicle stopped in front of the victim's pickup truck. Two suspects jumped out of the suspect vehicle and forced their way into the victim's pickup. The male suspect drove the victim's vehicle away with the victim and female suspects as passengers. The suspects beat the victim, forced him from his pickup, and then fled with the vehicle. The victim vehicle description and license plate were provided to the Stockton Police Department. Later that night, CRT was conducting routine enforcement and had been actively looking for the victim's pickup. Sergeant Matt Garlick was in the area of Oak and Monroe Streets when he saw two male subjects get out of a vehicle matching the description of the victim's pickup. Sergeant Garlick confirmed that it was in fact the stolen vehicle and saw the two male suspects get into yet another vehicle. He began to follow them while airing his observations and location over the radio. Other CRT officers were nearby. Sergeant Garlick activated his overhead lights at Poplar and Monroe Streets, and the suspect vehicle immediately fled and started what would become a 1-minute short vehicle pursuit, but with speeds up to 70 miles per hour. While following the suspect vehicle, Sergeant Garlick saw muzzle flashes from the driver's window. Upon recognizing that he was being fired upon, he immediately aired that information and alerted all officers of the escalated officer safety dangers. CRT officers Pope and Manor and Officer Heslin were in line behind Sergeant Garlick and also heard the gunfire. As the suspect vehicle sped across Pershing Avenue, it lost control, flipped off of the northbound I-5 on-ramp, and into a tree coming to rest on its roof. The vehicle's roof had collapsed onto the actual body of the car, leaving no possibility for the occupants to get out on their own. As other patrol officers arrived, Sergeant Garlick maintained control and established perimeter positions and street closures. When Lieutenant Kissel arrived on scene, Sergeant Garlick already had the incident in a static position from which they could then begin to form a plan of action. Through the vehicle's rear window, they could see the exposed lower back of a male occupant, and Sergeant Garlick noticed movement from that body and aired that information. On the other side of the vehicle, another occupant was observed who did not appear to be moving. They attempted communication with the vehicle occupants, but could only hear muffled words on occasion. They learned that at least one occupant was alive and wanted help. It became apparent that a blended team of officers and firefighters would have to approach the vehicle and extricate the occupants. Meanwhile, Stockton Police Dispatch advised that a female claiming to be the aunt of one of the occupants had contacted them. The aunt said she had been called by her nephew, who told her he had been in an auto accident and couldn't get out of the vehicle. Upon becoming aware one of the occupants had a cell phone and was able to use it, officers yelled to the occupants to call 911 so that they could then talk to them. The occupant called 911, and it was patched through to Sergeant Garlick's business phone. Sergeant Garlick confirmed through the occupant that there were 4 occupants in the car. The subject believed that 2 were dead, but said he thought the female passenger was still alive. The subject told Sergeant Garlick he had been the one shooting, and he had been using a revolver, which he thought was in the back seat, and that he shot all of the bullets. CRT Officer Manor, who recently had attended a crisis negotiation school, took over the phone call. From that moment until the occupants were freed from the vehicle, Officer Manor was able to keep the subject engaged on the phone and obtain updated information. Battalion Chief Matt Neeram, one of the first members in the SWAT medic program, met with Lee Kissel to devise a plan of action. It was decided that CRT officers, who were SWAT officers, along with SWAT Officer Buckley, who was on scene, would retrieve their SWAT protective vests, helmets, guns, and shields, and provide a shield of protection to the firefighters. Once the SWAT members and firefighters were ready, they moved up to the vehicle. The SWAT officers made verbal contact with the suspect in the vehicle and placed shields between the vehicle and the firefighters while maintaining target acquisition on the interior of the vehicle that could be seen. For the next 30 minutes, SWAT and fire personnel worked together as a team. The firefighters used specialized tools to open the doors to the vehicle. The first person to be extracted was the suspect who had admitted to firing at the police just a little while earlier. SWAT officers were able to handcuff him before removing him completely from the car, and there they discovered had been lying on a sawed-off Ruger 1022 semi-automatic rifle with extended magazines. SWAT officers and firefighters continued to work hand in hand to remove the next two occupants in the same manner. The fourth and final occupant was deceased and declared this at the scene. Sergeant Garlick and Officers Manor, Pope, and Heslin displayed professionalism and the ability to continue in a pursuit where shots were fired at them, and used good judgment and tactics when the suspect vehicle became immobilized. SWAT officers Cuvion, Terriall, Amont, Nall, and Buckley were willing to engage in a situation that afforded them practically no cover, no targets to speak of, and for what was known would be an extended amount of time. They performed in an extremely professional manner while being tasked with protecting non-police personnel who were driven by an objective that was contrary to personnel safety by nature. Stockton Fire Department Fire Captain Palmer, Engineer Domingo, and firefighters Riley and Hoskinson were the firefighters who put themselves in harm's way to accomplish the mission. They showed professionalism in every manner with their ability to work with the SWAT officers and to perform their duty, even when they were hampered by extra personnel, shields, guns, and dangerous suspects. Let's give our awards recipients a round of applause, please. Firefighters, come on up. Wait, guys. One photo with all of us. Sorry. Thank you. The next recognition event will be a Meritorious Service Award for Sergeant Matt Garlick, for Officer Kyle Amont. So Kyle, you're going to have to come right on back. Same with Officer James Manor. Please join me up on stage. As well as departmental recognition awards for Officer Julio Morales, Officer Alejandro Guerrero, and Officer Thomas Quinones. If you could also join me on stage. And also, through the same event, we'll be giving letters of good police work to Officers Tom Heslin and Kevin Nall. So let me tell you about this event. On January 5th, 2013, at approximately 9 p.m., patrol officers Guerrero and Quinones were dispatched to the report of a disturbance with shots fired. CRT officers Amont, Manor, Nall, Morales, and Heslin, as well as Sergeant Garlick, were conducting proactive enforcement in the area and responded to assist with patrol officers. While officers were en route, dispatch advised that they had multiple callers advising 2 suspects were armed with guns. One suspect, armed with a handgun, was a Latino male with long hair wearing a 49ers jacket. The second suspect was outside of the call location, armed with a sawed-off shotgun and a knife. Officers Nall and Morales arrived on scene first and observed a Hispanic male fitting the caller's description, running west. Officers Nall and Morales were able to take the suspect into custody without incident. Officers Heslin, Amont, and Manor subsequently arrived on scene and made contact with witnesses who advised that a male armed with a sawed-off shotgun had just run into a residence. Sergeant Garlick and officers Heslin, Amont, Manor, Nall, Quinones, and Guerrero made contact in the residence in an attempt to locate the outstanding armed suspect. The residents advised that a cousin ran into the house armed with a shotgun, but they advised that they did not know if the suspect was still inside the house, and they then became uncooperative with the officers. Sergeant Garlick and officers Amont, Heslin, Manor, Morales, Nall, Quinones, and Guerrero made an announcement at the door and tactically entered the house to clear it for the possible suspect. The officers cleared the living room and then held at the hallway until they had sufficient officers to clear the remainder of the home. Sergeant Garlick and the officers then came to a closed door that led into the attached single-car garage. They made an announcement at the interior garage door that it was the police department. Sergeant Garlick and officers Amont and Manor entered and encountered a suspect who was armed with a 12-gauge shotgun. The suspect had the shotgun pointed directly at the officers and attempted to discharge the weapon. Sergeant Garlick fired his duty weapon at the suspect, along with Officer Amont. The suspect immediately took cover in front of the vehicle that was parked in the single-car garage. Sergeant Garlick and Officer Amont continued to engage the suspect until the suspect dropped the weapon. They held the suspect at gunpoint until Officers Morales, Guerrero, and Quinones entered the garage and were able to place the suspect into handcuffs. The officers immediately began to apply first aid treatment to the suspect. Officer Manor immediately began to make room in the garage to remove the suspect so the suspect could be treated by Stockton Fire and AMR. Officer Manor forced open the vehicle garage door, which was wedged closed. Officers Manor and Morales carried the suspect from the garage to the driveway where medical personnel could treat the suspect. Once the suspect was in custody, Officer Amont immediately ran back into the residence to assist Officers Nall and Heslin, who had maintained coverage of the hallway during the shooting. The officers then cleared and secured the residence and other subjects inside the house. Sergeant Garlick and Officers Amont and Manor displayed professionalism and the ability to stay focused and engage the suspect in a confined space when shots had been fired, as well as used good judgment and tactics they deployed when they were confronted by an armed suspect. The armed suspect was in fact under the influence of PCP at the time. Officers Morales, Guerrero, and Quinones, who responded to assist their fellow officers, did so without hesitation. They entered an area where shots had just been fired. Once the suspect was detained, these officers immediately began to provide medical treatment to the suspect. Officers Heslin and Nall remained focused on securing the house for other possible suspects when their fellow officers were engaged with the armed suspect in the garage. Officers Heslin and Nall showed great calm and discipline by maintaining their focus on the hallway of the residence, with multiple gunshots being fired. Let's give these personnel a round of applause, please. Okay, stay up here and we'll take one group photo, please. If you could line up. For the next recognition event, we have the Meritorious Service Award for Officer Paul Donia. On July 18th, 2013, officers Paul Donia and Boyd Mayo were patrolling in the Bear Creek Policing District at about 10 p.m. when they were flagged down by several citizens. The upset citizens the patrol officers exited their patrol vehicle and learned that a 7-month-old girl was not breathing. The child may have choked on food. The officers used the radio to call for medical aid. Officers Donia grabbed the infant and placed it in his arms face down while Officer Mayo looked in the child's mouth. The child was gasping for air but was unable to breathe on its own. Officer Donia used the infant Heimlich maneuver and gave several back blows. A few seconds later, the child started breathing on its own. Stockton Fire and AMR arrived a few minutes later to take over for medical attention. The baby was taken to Dameron Hospital for precautionary measures, but appeared to be in good health at the time. Several citizens thanked the officers for their help and were impressed with their response. As police officers, we are expected to handle many types of situations, but providing emergency medical help is a rare occurrence. This compounds itself further when you're dealing with an infant and a crowd of concerned citizens. Officers Donia and Mayo remained calm in an extremely stressful situation and probably saved the infant's life. Sergeant Swales responded to the scene and said it was gratifying to see the appreciations that the citizens had for this event. So let's please give a round for Officer Paul Donia. For our next recognition event, we have the Meritorious Service Award for Officer Esteban Arrieta and a Letter of Good Police Work for Officer Robin Harrison. Officer Robin Harrison is unable to attend, but we have Esteban Arrieta here. On August 12th, 2013, dispatchers received a report of an armed robbery in progress at a local beauty supply on Wilson Way. An employee reported a suspect entered the store and then pulled out a black semi-automatic handgun and told the employee to give him the money or she would be killed. The employee attempted to open the safe, but since it was on a 10-minute timer, was unable to do so. A second employee in the rear of the business heard the robbery, called police, and then fled through the back door. The suspect took the first employee to the back of the business, but then heard responding officers' sirens and fled from the front of the business. Several officers responded to the call. Detective Robin Harrison responded in an unmarked vehicle and observed the suspect fleeing. Detective Harrison aired the suspect information over the radio and followed the suspect until other responding officers, who were Esteban Arrieta, Kenneth Pavey, Timothy McDermott, Alicio Hammer, David Wells, Alex Serrano, Jay Schofield, Michelle Guthrie, Kevin McDonald, and Ed Kohler, arrived and began either chasing the still armed suspect or securing the scene. Officers Medina and Freer also responded and began interviewing witnesses and store employees at the scene. Sergeants Rigo, Molthen, Will, and Kevin Smith responded to assist with supervising the investigation. As the suspect was fleeing through a fence to a nearby lot, Officer Arrieta deployed his taser, but as the suspect fell down, the probes from the taser cartridge dislodged. The suspect was able to stand up and continue to run away. Officer Pavey was able to tackle the suspect. Officer Pavey and several of the other officers struggled with the suspect as he had his hands near his waistband area and was believed to still be armed. Officer Arrieta deployed his taser again in dry stun mode, causing the suspect to roll back. Officer Arrieta saw a black semi-automatic .45 caliber pistol on the ground near the suspect's waist. Officer Arrieta warned the other officers of the gun and reached in and pulled the gun away from the area of the still resisting suspect. The other officers continued to struggle with the suspect until they were able to take him into custody. These officers showed calm in the face of danger and put their lives on the line for the citizens of Stockton. Their responses to this incident went above and beyond the call of duty. Please recognize Officer Esteban Arrieta. The next recognition event is for a citizen, and is citizen recognition plaque for Linda Walker. We were unsure if Linda was able to make it. Are you here, Linda? Well, we're going to still talk about you anyway, even though you're not, because it's pretty extraordinary. On the afternoon of Thursday, August 29th, 2013, Linda Walker observed two loose boxer dogs attempting to attack her cat. She was able to ward off the dogs until she was able to secure her cat. But a few minutes later, she observed her 80-year-old neighbor checking his mail. She then heard her neighbor yelling and saw the same two dogs attacking the 80-year-old. Her neighbor was on the ground while the dogs bit his arms. She saw that he was bleeding badly. Although afraid of dogs, Mrs. Walker grabbed a broom and wielded it at them to scare them off. She was able to keep the dogs at bay until someone was able to call for police assistance. Mrs. Walker and neighbors provided medical attention until emergency personnel arrived to assist her neighbor. Even though Mrs. Walker related that she is afraid of dogs, her quick thinking and her heroic actions saved her neighbor from being attacked further, which could have resulted in a much more serious and even possibly fatal injury. So for that, Linda Walker will be getting the citizen recognition plaque, and we will get that to her at a later time. So next, we have the Meritorious Service Award for Officer Anthony Perry, and we have departmental recognition awards for Officer Greg Dunn, Dave Highland, John Black, and Mark Wilson. And I understand most of them were tied up and unable to make it, but are any of those staff here today? But let's talk about that incident. On January 4th, 2014, at about 10:30 p.m., officers responded to Autumn Chase Circle for the report of a person stabbed. The caller said that a 10-year-old child had been stabbed, and the adult suspect was still inside the house. Upon arrival, the scene was very chaotic. They found the 10-year-old victim downstairs, wrapped in a blanket and being cradled by a family member. People in the downstairs area advised that the suspect was still upstairs. The upstairs balcony overlooked the living room where the victim and family were. There were open and closed doors with no clue as to where the suspect was. Two officers moved up the staircase in anticipation that the suspect would come out. Officer Perry moved to the injured child. He pulled back the blanket and discovered that the child had multiple deep stab wounds to the chest. The horrific injuries told their own story of what this child had just been through. Officer Perry recognized that the child was near death. He also thought of the safety of our local firefighters and medics. With an armed suspect somewhere in the house, it was not safe for medics to give aid to the child. Officer Perry scooped up the child into his own arms and ran out of the house with him. With his bleeding hand, the child clutched Officer Perry's uniform and pleaded to him, "Don't let me die." Officer Perry ran to the end of the block to meet medics, while the child faded in and out of consciousness. Once Officer Perry made it to the firefighters, they had to pry the child's grip from Officer Perry's uniform. The last words Officer Perry heard from the child were, "Thank you for carrying me." The child was rushed to San Joaquin General Hospital. Medical doctors and staff performed emergency surgery, and the child was flown to UC Davis that night. The child was in critical condition, but stabilized and was expected to survive. So let's give a round of applause for the actions of the officers of that night, please. The next recognition event is a Meritorious Service Award for Officer Joseph Silva, if you could come up, as well as citizen recognition plaques for citizens Mario Arroyo, Fernando Arroyo, and Victor Constantino, if you could come up. On February 14th, 2014, 6:30 p.m., Officer Joseph Silva was with his family eating Valentine's Day dinner at a restaurant on March Lane. You can probably guess what restaurant that was since we have the Arroyos up here. Officer Silva was off duty and in plain clothes. Officer Silva was sitting at a table in the restaurant side of the bar with his wife and son when he heard a loud commotion coming from the bar area. People were screaming and yelling loudly. Officer Silva saw a Hispanic male in the bar area holding a gun in his hand. He was pointing and waving the gun at other patrons. Officer Silva quickly ushered his family to safety and realized that since this was a dangerous situation, he armed himself with his department-issued handgun. Officer Silva then made his way to the hostess area of the restaurant and saw the suspect had moved and was now just outside the front door on the landing. Many of the patrons from the bar were still screaming and running, many fleeing toward the same front door where the suspect was, and the suspect was still armed with a gun. Officer Silva opened the front door and immediately confronted the suspect. The suspect was arguing with his female companion over the gun. Officer Silva identified himself as a Stockton police officer and demanded the suspect hand over his weapon. The suspect was still holding the gun. His female companion was yelling at him to give up the gun. Officer Silva demanded the suspect give him the gun several more times, and as Officer Silva approached the suspect's female companion, who was in between Officer Silva and the suspect, was finally able to get him to let go of the gun, and she handed it over to Officer Silva. It should be noted that the hammer on the suspect's gun of .45 caliber was cocked back. Officer Silva then ordered the suspect to the ground, telling him he was under arrest. At this point, both Officer Silva and the suspect were at the edge of the grass in front of the restaurant. The suspect did not immediately comply with his demand, and Officer Silva approached him demanding he get to his knees on the ground. While Officer Silva still had his gun pointing at the suspect, he saw numerous people watching him and walking away toward the parking lot. Officer Silva did not know if any of these people were friends of the suspect, and this concerned him. Officer Silva then saw Mario Arroyo, the restaurant owner, Fernando Arroyo, Mario's son, and Victor Constantino, a customer, outside. He asked all three to watch his back to make sure no one came in his direction and to keep everyone away. All three of them did exactly that. Officer Silva called the SPD's dispatch center to advise them of the situation and requested assistance. Victor Constantino assisted in detaining the suspect and was also able to help Officer Silva get handcuffs. Officer Silva was able to handcuff the suspect and told him to hold him at gunpoint until patrol officers arrived. Prior to patrol officers arriving, Officer Silva called dispatch to advise them that they had a suspect at gunpoint and needed assistance. Lieutenant J. Smith spoke to the dispatcher who took the call from Officer Silva. She said Officer Silva was very calm, was not excited or nervous on the phone, and was able to clearly give the information needed for responding officers to know what was going on as they arrived. Due to Officer Silva's quick and decisive action and calm demeanor, a potentially deadly encounter was prevented. In addition, without concern for their own safety, citizens Mario Arroyo, Fernando Arroyo, and Victor Constantino provided invaluable assistance to Officer Silva as he took control of the situation and arrested the subject. Let's give them some applause, please. I'd also like to take this opportunity before moving on to the last part of the award ceremony. We do have some members of our dispatch center here, and if it weren't for you on that night, getting the needed resources to the scene and for what you do day in and day out, we really appreciate it. So let's give dispatch a round of applause as well. The last series of recognition we have this afternoon are our Auto Theft Awards, also known as the 10851 Awards. The California Highway Patrol has selected a group of officers to receive what are known as 10851 awards or auto theft arrest awards. They range from award level 1, which is for the recovery of 6 stolen vehicles, 6 of which resulted in arrest, up to level 8, which is for the recovery of 21 stolen vehicles, 3 of which result in arrest. So I'm going to read off the recipients of the 10851 awards. For award 1, can we please have Officer Brad Delk come up? And as I say your name, come on up to the stage. Officer Jeremy Edams for award 2. Officer Kevin Hackler for award 1. Officer Robin Harrison for award 8. Tom Heslin for award 5. And if you're wondering where they are, they told me in advance they wouldn't make it. Now some of these are here and they're able to make it. Officer Cody Johnson for award 1. Officer Sat Lee, award 2. Kevin McDonald for award 1 and 2. Eric Morrison for awards 1 and 2. Ryan Rankin for awards 1, 2, and 3. Houston Sensabaugh for award 2. Daniel Short, award 1. Sergeant Timothy Swales, award 5. Officer Ryan Terriall for awards 4 and 5. And Officer Varr for award 1. If you could please come join me. So the police department received this following letter from the California Highway Patrol Valley Division from Assistant Chief Hill. Quote, "For years, California has benefited from a decline in auto theft rates. However, recent statistics indicate this crime is on the rise. Even more alarming, vehicle theft remains the most costly property crime impacting the citizens of California. As a statewide vehicle theft investigation and apprehension coordinator, the California Highway Patrol is making every effort to reverse this trend. I would like to take this opportunity to commend you for your alertness and attention to duty in the recovery of these stolen vehicles. Your individual effort has significantly contributed to the progress of law enforcement, reducing the incidence of vehicle theft within the state of California. Thank you for a job well done." So we'll now give out the awards, and congratulations for impacting auto theft. Thank you. To all of the award recipients, I would again like to thank each of you today for your heroism and bravery, for the things that you've done for this community. It is people like you that make our community a better place to live. That concludes our presentation. Thank you all for coming today. We're going to take one last group with all award recipients, but let's give them one last round of applause. Thank you very much.
I'll do a 3 for you. 1, 2, and 3.